Right now at 9, the Census Bureau releases its poverty and income report and says nationally the poverty level has risen by 1%. I'm Chris Warner with how an increase like that could impact local organizations.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is providing new insight about the Taliban taking control of Afghanistan. I'm Mallory Rivera in Washington with what the Secretary of State is saying about the U.S. role moving forward coming up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jordan Abbey. An increase in the nation's poverty level over the past 10 years is felt locally by organizations that serve folks in need. KOAM's Chris Warner spoke with 2 of those organizations on what they're seeing in the region.
On Tuesday, the Census Bureau released its Income and Poverty Report, which showed a 1% increase in poverty nationally. New local numbers weren't immediately available, but as of 2019, the city of Joplin had a nearly 19% poverty rate, while the national average is at 10% and the state average is at 12%. The number of people living in poverty is placing an increased demand on local service providers as well.
The stimulus relieved the immediate crisis, which is what we do, but we're starting to see things trend back upward.
For Crosslines, Executive Director Rodney Rambo says they're grateful for the assistance they get from the community to help meet those increased needs.
We were started through the generosity of the community, through the local churches, and we continue to depend on that today. So fortunately, we live in a place where our community tends to respond to need very well.
Rambo says he's concerned the poverty percentage in Joplin could go up.
We do expect that number to continue to increase. Joplin, we tend to have a higher poverty level than the surrounding region.
Over at the Economic Security Corporation, they've seen a 26% increase in customers needing assistance since 2019.
So it definitely could go up. I think if it does, more customers will be seeking assistance. My hope is that some of the programming that we do will help people get out of poverty or get into a better situation.
Community Development Director Tammy Walker says part of that increase is due to the pandemic, but another side effect of the pandemic has been an increase to funding to organizations like Economic Security to provide services.
And we were able to look at the needs in the community and create programs that we haven't done before. For example, we were offering water bill assistance, and that's taken off.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
We've put links to Economic Security for those seeking assistance, as well as links to Crosslines for those looking to help in this story on our website, KOAMnewsnow.com. Nick Kelly joining us now with first look at the forecast. Bit warmer today, Nick.
Certainly on the warm side, Jordan. In fact, very warm with highs near 92 after we started at 72 this morning. But this warmth and the humidity that's on the increase is finally giving us our best shot of rain and thunderstorms for the entire week. Even though it's been in a scattered variety in our northern counties this evening so far, I'm still keeping an eye on this batch of thunderstorms out of south central Kansas. They're all developing along our cold front that will still pass on through as we go through the rest of the evening. But as far as where we sit right now, mid to upper 70s. Before I toss back over to you, Jordan, I do want to give a quick rundown about how these storms might unfold overnight. I think there's still a good chance that they'll increase in coverage and pass on through as we go into tomorrow morning. I don't think it will be anything severe, but I can't rule out some heavy rain. And thankfully, Jordan, this doesn't last all day long tomorrow. We'll break down the rest of tomorrow in the forecast here in a bit.
Nick Kelly, thank you. A Joplin man who owns a Pittsburgh business is indicted by a federal grand jury on 5 counts of false statement in a tax return. Kenneth Maddle owns Maddle Construction in Pittsburgh. Prosecutors say Maddle underreported the company's gross income from 2015 to 2019 by more than $1 million. Missouri Southern receives a grant to learn more about food insecurity with students. The Fosbeck Foundation grant gives the university $25,000 to fund research into food insecurity within Missouri college students. It's also going to look at their access to and knowledge of the SNAP program.
A better understanding of SNAP knowledge, SNAP awareness, and food insecurity in this population so that we can then determine what type of interventions, what types of planning and programming need to be done across the state to help these students get enrolled in the SNAP program.
Colors, who heads up the Lion Co-op, will be directing the research. If you'd like to donate to the co-op, check out the link to this story on our website. That's KOAMnewsnow.com. The fate of Governor Gavin Newsom is in the hands of California voters as they head to the polls to vote in the California recall election, deciding to keep Governor Gavin Newsom in office or choose a more conservative direction. Fox News national correspondent William Lajeunesse has more now from Orange County, California.
It's Judgment Day for California Governor Gavin Newsom as voters head to the polls to decide if he'll keep his job.
I want to support Gavin Newsom, and I voted no.
So I was excited for the recall, and I did vote to recall Newsom.
More than a third of registered voters in the Golden State already cast their vote by going early in person or mailing or dropping off their ballot. Deciding whether or not to recall Newsom, and if so, selecting one of 46 challengers to lead America's most populous state. Republican and conservative radio host Larry Elder leads the pack. He continues to attack Newsom's leadership, especially his handling of the pandemic.
Now, you know what you call a business owner who works 9 to 5? Bankrupt. And men and women who did just that lost their businesses because of the way Gavin Newsom shut down the state, while, by the way, leaving his own winery open.
Newsom says the election is not about him, but Donald Trump. President Biden drawing a comparison between the former president and the Republican frontrunner as he helped make a final push to keep Newsom in office.
He's the clone of Donald Trump. Can you imagine him being governor of this state? You can't let that happen.
A Newsom ouster would be shocking. California Democrats outnumber Republicans roughly 2-1. And with Newsom leading in the polls, he's unlikely to be recalled.
Polls can be wrong.
If Newsom is recalled, the top vote getter among the 46 challengers becomes governor. In Orange County, California, William Lajeunesse, Fox News.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken facing a new round of questions from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee today. The secretary spoke about the exit strategy from Afghanistan, what went wrong, and the impact of the Taliban and his control of the country. Fox News correspondent Madeline Rivera has a closer look from Washington.
On his second appearance before lawmakers on Capitol Hill, Secretary of State Antony Blinken once again defended the Biden administration's decision to leave Afghanistan, maintaining that intelligence reports did not foresee the quick takeover of the Taliban.
Even the most pessimistic assessments did not predict that the government forces in Kabul would collapse.
A point Republicans slammed.
We should have known that as we began to draw down support, we were going to see the potential for a collapse.
Senators also grilled Blinken on security threats and whether the Taliban has cut off ties with terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and the Haqqani network.
Has the Taliban abandoned their sympathy and collaboration with groups like Al-Qaeda? The relationship has not been severed.
Frustration growing over how the Taliban might rule, even as Blinken emphasizes U.S. recognition of their leadership will depend on its conduct.
We expect the Taliban to ensure freedom of travel, to make good on its counterterrorism commitments.
They are terrorists who want to murder us.
And there's disappointment over how the administration is responding to roughly 100 stranded Americans, several thousand green card holders, and Afghan allies who want to leave the country.
I'm extremely disappointed because I feel there is more that can be done by this administration.
Chairman Bob Menendez has called for Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to testify as well and may subpoena him to do so. In Washington, Madeline Rivera, Fox News.
Former Vice President Mike Pence attending the funeral of a Marine killed in Afghanistan last month. Pence joining family and friends of 22-year-old Corporal Humberto Sanchez right there. The group coming together at Life Gate Church in Logansport, Indiana to honor Sanchez's life. During the funeral, Pence, a former Indiana governor, of course, praised Sanchez for being a hero.
And as history records, on 26 August, Corporal Sanchez lost his life along with 12 other U.S. service members. He gave his life defending innocent civilians, fleeing from the chaos that had become Afghanistan.
Hundreds also lined the streets outside of the church for a procession. The community coming together to give Sanchez a final salute. KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14 takes this time now to honor another four-state hero. Donald Evans served in the U.S. Army from 1955 to 56. Native of Bronau, Missouri, Evans was stationed in Germany and Korea. We are proud to thank and salute Donald Evans, tonight's four-state hero. Nick is next with a complete look at the forecast. A bit later, the Girard Trojans aiming for a 3-0 start against CNC rival Columbus this week. Going to hear from the team, of course, in sports.
We kept pretty quiet to start the day out. Then our thunderstorm chances started to ramp up a little earlier than expected. But despite that, we kept this time-lapse from indigo sky outside of Seneca, Missouri on the quiet side. But we definitely noticed more cloud cover on the increase today ahead of our approaching frontal system, actually frontal system that's working through right now. We did hit the mid-90s yesterday, dropped back into the lower 70s this morning, and topped back at least at 91, 92 degrees at Joplin Regional this afternoon. And that was before we did see our scattered thunderstorms actually start to develop in our northern counties to start things out. You can see how there's still quite a bit of rain and thunderstorm activity out in south central and southwestern parts of Kansas. That's activity we'll have to monitor overnight. But in our immediate area, this is the only area of rain that I can find on the radar. East of 49, east of Nevada, and then stretching from, let's say, the Harry Truman Reservoir down to the northern shores of Stockton Lake. That's where we have the heaviest of the thunderstorms. And thankfully, they're just strong with maybe some heavy rainfall. Certainly not seeing anything severe. And I really don't expect it as we go deeper into the overnight hours. But we're still looking quiet in Joplin, sitting at 80, feels like 82 with dew points sitting in the mid-60s. So we definitely have some more moisture working in to help support rain chances that are still expected to increase as we go through the rest of the night. And temperatures otherwise mid to upper 70s with downtown Joplin still sitting at about 80 degrees. Let's widen the picture out. You can still see there's a little severe thunderstorm watch for south central Kansas, mainly around the Wichita area. There just haven't been a lot of severe thunderstorms with this cluster of storms rolling in along our passing cold front. You can see better severe weather chances though in parts of the Ohio Valley. The bigger picture, though, shows as this upper level wave passes on through and we get some more moisture upstairs to work in, I'm still expecting rain chances to increase once we get after 10 o'clock tonight. You can see how the future track wants to hold on to that idea and have any of the thunderstorms out west try to roll in. We'll have to see if that will still come to pass, but I'm still expecting our rain chances to be at their highest as we go through the overnight, scattered in nature, and just strong with heavy rainfall. I really don't see us with a good, really strong storm threat or severe threat, certainly as we go into your morning drive on Wednesday. And thankfully, the morning, that's the best shot for rain on our Wednesday because the rest of the afternoon will certainly quiet down and dry out as soon as that front clears on out of here. 68 in the morning, 79 by noon. Afternoon highs right around 85. If we do see the rain chances pan out like we just saw on the future track, a lot of us can still have a chance to see anywhere from 1/10 of an inch to maybe an inch of rain. Any heavier pockets of rain, maybe pushing 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches. Something we'll still watch, and definitely Michael Hayslip will as we continue into Wednesday morning. And then on down the road, maybe a weak upper low developing underneath this building ridge, but we're mainly dry through much of the weekend, and you can see that as we roll in the 7-day forecast. 85 tomorrow, 87 on Thursday with lows in the mid-60s. That's going to feel pretty nice, Jordan, before we see highs back near 90 on Friday, lower to middle 90s through the weekend and into early next week. And again, thankfully, I'm not expecting nothing too crazy with these storm chances that we have in place tonight.
Yeah, tomorrow during the day, it looks pretty good. 85.
Yeah.
Nick Kelly, we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you so much. Coming up, some progress with President Biden's Build Back Better agenda.
Progress with the infrastructure bill. That's according to the Senate Majority Leader. I'm Lauren Blanchard in Washington with more on where the proposed deal stands coming up.
Democrats are hoping to pass a massive bill as part of the president's Build Back Better agenda. Within the party, though, there are concerns, even as the bill moves closer to a vote. Fox News correspondent Lauren Blanchard has the latest from Washington.
We are making great progress towards bringing the bill to the floor.
Democrats are inching closer to passing trillions in spending, not only with a bipartisan infrastructure bill, but Senate Leader Chuck Schumer believes Democrats will meet their Wednesday deadline to finish the draft text of their $3.5 trillion bill. Meanwhile, House Democrats rolled out their tax proposal to help pay for it. It includes tax rate increases for both wealthy individuals and big businesses. Republicans say the bill is wasteful and will lead to inflation, as the latest consumer price index rose another 0.1%, although a slower pace than the last 6 months.
They've been printing and wasting money like there's no tomorrow, and American families are hurting.
Even within the Democratic Party, there's also some concern on the $3.5 trillion price tag. Leader Chuck Schumer will need all 50 of his members to successfully pass the bill.
So let's be realistic here. Let's be honest here. The charges of runaway inflation are just wrong.
Moderate Democratic Senator Joe Manchin says he's more comfortable with a $1.5 trillion bill, but progressives in the party see this as their moment to push for the biggest bill possible while they hold both chambers.
Right now, we are just talking about a number, and nobody's talking about what we're trying to do.
Senator Manchin also said the process is moving too quickly. The House Speaker wants full passage of the bill by next month. In Washington, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
Next, a closer look at a new normal.
Can working from home be damaging to local businesses? I'm Kevin Cork in Washington with more on why you working from home could mean a loss of work and a lot of revenue for local business. That's just ahead.
One could have imagined the pandemic would last this long. And now, more than a year and a half in, instead of returning to the office, the Delta variant is keeping thousands of employees still working from home. Fox News correspondent Kevin Cork has more on how it's creating damaging effects for countless local businesses.
As a growing number of companies continue delaying bringing their entire workforces back into the office, the effect is keeping once busy downtown business hubs empty.
It's ghost town,
causing stores once catering to the thousands of office workers in the area to see a dramatic decrease in steady customers, forcing many businesses to face one of two options: pack up shop or reinvent themselves.
It was really getting to be bad.
Mike Frank owns a dry cleaning business in Detroit. Before the pandemic, his monthly revenue was roughly $11,000, but plummeted to under $2,000 when COVID hit. So when he saw people swapping their suits for sweatpants, he began selling household essentials to cater to those no longer needing his dry cleaning services.
I came up with my market idea. I think if it works for gas stations.
Meanwhile, the ongoing surge in COVID-19 cases is causing some workers already being brought back into the office to question the timing of their return.
There's no flexibility, and we're not given a real reason for it.
New York City just required all 300,000 city employees to return to the office Monday. And for many, readjusting to pre-pandemic workflow is proving difficult.
The commute is hard. You know, being used to being home and being around so many people and fearful of germs.
Google, Apple, and Amazon all expected to bring their employees back into the office this month, but all of those tech giants have now decided to wait until January to welcome everyone back. In Washington, I'm Kevin Cork, Fox News.
Coming up, a tour boat off the coast of Australia getting a whale of a surprise when a rare sight surfaces on the water. Tonight captured off the coast of Australia. Look at that, a megapod of humpback whales, more than 100 strong. Was caught on camera surrounding a boat near a town south of Sydney in New South Wales. A tour company was leading a training exercise when the whales appeared, slapping their tails on the water, herding fish in a feeding frenzy. Now, the company's owner says the migrating whales he's seen this year have been feeding a lot more, possibly because of a shortage of food. He also says such a mass megapod of humpbacks has been seen only once before in the country's waters. Nature, once again, putting on some of the best shows, right? 30 more minutes, news, weather, and sports coming your way.
Sleep is something that we all need, but more of us have been getting less of it throughout the pandemic. I'm Zach Dodge with why and what you can try to catch some more Z's coming up.
Also, a warning about a dangerous army. Worms gulping up seemingly endless amounts of grass. A major U.S. pharmacy is saying customers who registered for COVID-19 tests may have had their data exposed. Reports say Walgreens exposed the information of its customers on its website through its test registration system. That's where, say, a link to the confirmed test reservation gives access to private information with no login required. This includes access to birthdays, phone numbers, addresses, and emails, according to reports. Now, Walgreens has yet to fix their system, which means those who sign up for tests still could be vulnerable, have their data leaked to other companies and advertisers. The legal and political fallout continues from President Biden's announcement of a federal vaccine mandate. Fox News correspondent Mark Meredith has more now from Washington.
COVID-19 is still spreading, but health officials say they're hopeful a recent surge in cases has peaked. Right now, the U.S. is averaging 117,000 cases daily, down some 22% from the week prior. Health officials say the decline is due to rising vaccination rates. The change comes, though, as many Republicans declare their opposition to President Biden's newly announced vaccine mandates. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is threatening $5,000 fines for cities that comply with the mandate.
There are some of those folks who may make a decision that's not ultimately the right decision. I just don't think that that decision should be used to cast aside people who've served our communities for years.
The president has brushed off threats of legal challenges, but some business owners say they're torn over whether they'll have to comply with a federal mandate, even if a state says it's not enforceable.
We're very concerned about the enforcement mechanism. So we think that there's really the opportunity for an unlevel playing field.
Meanwhile, there's a new debate about booster shots, which the White House says should be approved in coming weeks. Two outgoing FDA researchers say there's no scientific basis to offer a third dose to the general public, despite growing pressure on the agency to approve boosters quickly.
The benefits outweigh the costs overwhelmingly, and the FDA needs to get out of their ivory tower and realize there's a real-life pandemic.
On Friday, an FDA advisory panel is set to review Pfizer's data on booster shots, but it's unclear how fast those shots may be rolled out even after they're approved. In Washington, Mark Meredith, Fox News.
Insomnia is on the rise in every age group as people stress about the pandemic itself, and everything has changed. So much has changed in the last year and a half. KOAM Zach Dosh has details and some things you could try to get more and better sleep.
Sleep is something that we obviously all need, but several people are getting less of it.
As a physician, as a human in this pandemic, it has impacted my sleep.
Generally speaking, 15 to 30% of the population will have trouble sleeping.
During the pandemic, though, that number has increased to 40%, according to the National Institutes of Health, and the reason has been dubbed COVID-somnia.
Stress and sleep do not mix. Most of our stressors in our world are short-term. Unfortunately, the pandemic has been a long-term stress.
Psychiatrist Charles Graves at Access Family Care says that insomnia can impact physical and cognitive performance, like concentration, problem solving, and rational thinking.
Obviously, that impacts our school-age children at school, but also our adults who have to look after those children.
The misery factor goes up anytime you can't sleep.
Psychologist Charles Doyle says that can be especially detrimental to people who are already dealing with a mental illness like anxiety or depression.
It becomes a serious thing for them to deal with, and it decreases their daily function, increases their symptoms overall.
So what can you do to catch some more sleep? Here are some tips that all three experts recommend, with some of the bigger ones being create a sleep schedule, turn off the screens, and try not to worry about the things that you cannot change. If that doesn't help, it may be time to seek out professional help.
If it goes for a week or more where people are having difficulties initiating and maintaining sleep, it's appropriate to speak with your physician at that period of time.
When your sleep is off, it's often a red flag that says that something else is off, that it needs to be attended to as well.
In Joplin, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
If you have a mental challenge like anxiety and depression and endure the cycle of sleeplessness so long that it sends you into a crisis, the Ozark Center has a crisis intervention line. That's 417-347-7720. Again, that number, 417-347-7720. When you're driving an RV under a bridge, it's helpful and important to know the clearance height. A serious reminder right here. An 83-year-old man and a 93-year-old woman were taken to the hospital after their RV collided with an overhead railroad deck on Route CC east of Seneca, Missouri. The two victims from Montana were listed in moderate condition. Look at that. The RV was, as we're seeing, heavily damaged in this incident. La Peste is causing damage to lawns across the 4 states. Officials say army worms are spreading across the area, rapidly eating large amounts of grass. Army worms are actually caterpillars that reproduce in large quantities and spread over a field like an army. They feed primarily on Bermuda grass, ryegrass, fescue, bluegrass, and some crops.
So once the worms hatch and turn into moths, they mate and lay more eggs. So if your lawn's been treated before 5 weeks ago or so, doesn't mean there's not more coming from around you gonna lay eggs in your lawn, hatch, and continue damage.
Go get your food somewhere else, right? Experts say one of the most effective ways to prevent their spread is to just be aware and take action if you notice any problems. Missouri Southern students today got to taste an authentic Japanese meal as part of the school's Japan semester, introducing students to different parts of Japanese culture. The event, called A Taste of Japan, was held in the Mays Student Life Center. For $10 per person, folks got a full Japanese meal provided by the executive chef of Fresh Ideas.
At least on my side of things, this means a lot, getting actually to be able to go and try these out, get a taste of another culture, even if I can't fully go there like I would much rather.
Missouri Southern is hosting several other future events as part of its Japan semester. A bit later, a look at the damage left behind by Hurricane Nicholas.
Nicholas brings heavy rain as it crawls through southeast Texas. I'm Robert Ray in Galveston with details coming up.
Even though the main focus for our next 3 minutes will be the rain chances for tonight, we can't help but notice how at least the look from Indigo Sky Casino and Resort outside of Seneca, Missouri looked quiet throughout much of the day. Also, this little more cloud cover up top. Despite that, this setup took us from the lower 70s to the lower 90s for this afternoon. That is again before we saw our next frontal system working in now, fire off scattered showers and thunderstorms actually late this afternoon, and still trying to do that as we go through the rest of the evening hours. You can see a closer look in the radar network, a good area of rain, still trying to work away from the Kansas Turnpike and away from the Wichita Metro, trying to work east, but closest to us, this is the only area of really strong thunderstorms that I can find on the board. East of 49, east of Nevada, pretty much right over the Harry Truman Reservoir and down over the, especially the northern shores of Stockton Lake. But you can see how these aren't too terribly strong, and even at their strongest, they're only going to produce mainly moderate to heavy rainfall. And I think that's going to be the overall trend with our rain chances as we continue through the rest of the night. In the meantime, though, 7th and Range Line, the city of Joplin looking quiet still, but warm at 80 degrees, feels like 82 with the dew point in the mid 60s. So we definitely have an increase in the moisture to help support rain chances throughout the rest of the night. As far as temperatures go, most of us in the mid to upper 70s, but ultimately we will drop back into the upper 60s as we continue, not just with the cloud cover and this front rolling through, but the chance is still there for developing rain and storms on top of us, in addition to seeing how this cluster of storms out in south central Kansas will unfold as they try to work south and east. In the meantime, though, this is all part of a bigger cold front stretching all the way up to the Great Lakes, where that area actually has the better shot for severe weather going into the overnight. But as long as our front's still around going into the overnight with a passing upper level wave and more moisture upstairs trying to come in as well, that's just going to keep the chances, at least, for scattered rain and storms going throughout the overnight. The future track is doing its best trying to figure out what's going on here, but even though the radar may not exactly look like this at 2 a.m., it's still suggesting the idea, and I still think it's a good idea, that we'll have scattered rain and thunderstorm chances throughout the night. Nothing severe, but don't be surprised if some rumbles of thunder or some moderate to heavy rainfall try to wake you up before we drop back into the upper 60s as we get the morning drive started. Once we get past the morning, that is it with our rain chances for Wednesday. The front clears on through, passing off to the south and east, and will look a lot better for tomorrow afternoon. I can guarantee you that for sure. 68 in the morning, 79 by noon. Afternoon highs right around 85. You can see how we start with rain in the morning, then go partly sunny, if not mostly sunny, during the afternoon. And remember, I think this is our best shot for rain for the next 6 or 7 days, so we'll try our best to see rain amounts between 1/10 of an inch to maybe 1.5 inches of rainfall at the most before we see plenty of dry time back into play once again. But 85 tomorrow, 87 on Thursday, a nice dip in temperatures with some of the next few nights in the mid to upper 60s. But once we hit the weekend, Jordan will have to head back into the lower to middle 90s through the weekend, and I'll watch for our next best chance for rain next Tuesday and Wednesday of next week.
So that answers the question, are we done with the heat? No.
I wish we were done with this soon, but hey, a nice little dip for the next few days. We'll take it.
In due time, right? Nick Kelly, thank you so much. Coming up in sports, the Girard Trojans preparing for a big showdown against Columbus Friday night. Also, Joplin softball aiming for its first league win against Carthage. Jacob Leonard has the highlights next.
The Joplin Eagles play at home this afternoon in a COC matchup against Carthage. Now, the Eagles are aiming for their first conference win after falling to Webb City and Branson in their first 2 league games. Carthage, meanwhile, comes in with a 1-1 record in the league, 8-10 overall. Now, this one was a pitcher's duel early. Jillian McDaniel, pair of strikeouts in the first inning. Other side, Jensen Elder, really good for Carthage. Strikeout there in the second. Then in the third, Elder with another. Joplin did have a chance to strike first in the third. Jaden Pankow to right. Ball gets away and into the corner. She's in there for the triple. But Elder gets out of the inning with a strikeout. She finished with 13 strikeouts. Game still scoreless. Now the fourth inning was the big one for Carthage. Mary Grace Richmond with the bases loaded. That scores 2. Carthage gets 7 in the fourth. Tigers going to beat Joplin tonight 8-0. Couple Big 8 teams here playing tonight. McDonald County hosts Seneca. McDonald County 7-1 on the year, riding a 6-game winning streak, and the Mustangs make it 7 in a row, winning in a shutout, beating Seneca 8-0. The Girard Trojans are 2-0 to start the season. On Friday, the Trojans have easily their biggest game of the season so far, hosting the Columbus Titans. Now, it's an important game for both teams and a budding rivalry heading into their 3rd meeting in the last year. The last time Girard and Columbus were on the field together, the Trojans knocked the undefeated Titans out of the playoffs in the first round.
Going into it, I think, I'm certainly we're circled on a calendar somewhere thinking that, knocked them off last year in the playoffs, and I'm sure they're eager to play us. But at the same time, our guys, we got to understand that game has no bearing on what this year is, and we got to go take care of business.
Girard is on a roll to start the season, blowing out both Colgan and Baxter Springs in their first 2 games.
We've gotten a chance to get a lot of people in. We took the opportunity to look at last week as, hey, how do we get better from week 1 to week 2? And there's some things that we did, and there's some things that we still need to get improved, and we're excited to get back to work and get that fixed this week.
Girard's defense has been impressive, allowing just 7 total points through 2 games.
Technique's a big thing for us. We're a little bit smaller up front, so it's a big thing for us right now.
We've got a good group there. We're we kept a lot of the same stuff that we had a year ago, so we're familiar with it. We've got some athletes that can fly around a little bit, but we've had turnovers. Guys have been doing a pretty good job of getting the ball and tackling. Guys just, kind of being unselfish in what they do, make the plays they're supposed to make, and let their teammates make the plays that they're supposed to make.
While Girard knows they can get the job done on Friday, they know it's an important game for Columbus, and the Titans will be ready to play.
They're a good team. They've got a lot of guys back from a year ago that had a nice team. They do some things very, very sound. They know their identity on both sides of the ball. It's kind of like us. They kind of know what they're doing. Defensively, they know what their responsibilities are, and they go play hard and play fast, and it's going to be a challenge for us.
Columbus beat Girard in the regular season last year before the Trojans returned to the favor in the playoffs. Titans, by the way, are 1-1 this year through their first 2 games. And that's a look at sports. We're back with more news after this.
In southeast Texas are without power as Nicholas moves through the region. The storm expected to impact much of the south with heavy rain over the coming days. Fox Weather multimedia journalist Robert Ray has more.
Nicholas moved across southeast Texas on Tuesday, bringing heavy rain to areas flooded by Hurricane Harvey in 2017. Strong wind gusts left hundreds of thousands without power, but officials in Houston say the storm could have been a lot worse.
I think we fared fairly well from Hurricane Nicholas. The good news is that there were no injuries reported.
We saw some storm surge flooding, but for the most part, the impacts are through.
Nicholas made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane early Tuesday, with maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour. The system made a slow trek over Texas, allowing more than a foot of rain to fall in the city of Galveston. Emergency crews are out assessing damage across the Houston area. The storm's strong winds tore awnings off gas stations and cluttered streets with debris. Officials are warning residents to stay off the roads.
We got trees down on the roadways. It's just not very safe for people to get out and move about. We don't want anybody to get hurt.
Nicholas is expected to move over southwestern Louisiana on Wednesday. The National Weather Service says it could stall and dump rain on areas already flooded by Hurricane Ida.
One of the things that could exacerbate the threat of flooding are all the
ditches and catch basins and storm drains and so forth, all these drainage systems that have debris from previous storms that hasn't yet been cleaned up.
Nicholas is expected to bring heavy rain to the Deep South through Thursday. In Galveston, Texas, Robert Ray, Fox Weather.
Next, gonna get a preview of this fall's new movie lineup. Hollywood rolling out many highly anticipated flicks this fall, so let's take a look at what's heading to the screens. Here's Fox's Ashley DVORKIN with our fall movie preview.
We've got action, we've got music, and we've got Bond.
Today is going to be an amazing day.
One of the biggest movies of September is going to be Dear Evan Hansen. This is the adaptation of the Tony Award-winning musical. Also, we have an assassin movie called Cop Shop that stars Gerard Butler and Frank Grillo. And then, of course, Bond is back with No Time to Die. And then how can we not mention Mr. Clint Eastwood, who is returning to direct. He's over 90 now, and he's directing and starring in Cry Macho.
Also in October is Dune.
Dune really is probably the most immersive movie-going experience that you will have this year in a movie theater.
Plus The Addams Family 2, Venom Let There Be Carnage, and a certain slasher sequel.
Michael Myers is back in Halloween Kills. Jamie Lee Curtis also returns for that one. And then Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright returns with a bit of a time-traveling, time-warpy horror movie.
Now, November notables, starting with a huge Marvel film.
Eternals introduces a whole new ensemble of Marvel heroes led by Gemma Chan and Angelina Jolie. And this one is also directed by Chloe Zhao, who just won an Oscar for Nomadland. We also have the Ghostbusters return in Ghostbusters Afterlife. We also have King Richard, where Will Smith plays the father of Venus and Serena Williams. Disney has an animated film in there called Encanto. And guess what? Resident Evil returns to theaters with Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City.
From reboots to originals, it's shaping up to be a busy fall season at the movies. In Hollywood, Ashley DVORKIN, Fox News.
That's our time for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. Gonna leave you with video of some doggos catching some waves in a California surfing competition. Be safe. Do this all again tomorrow. See you then.